Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build your very own e-commerce data pipeline. I'm going to go over how you can integrate some key data tools in the space right now. We will actually set up all these tools by hand and from scratch. You're going to learn some cool data transformation techniques. You'll also have a visualized workflow management system to better manage this data pipeline. There are going to be some prerequisites for this project, so before you get started, make sure you have Python 3.10 or later installed on your local machine. You're also going to want Docker and Docker Compose. In this project, we're going to be using Airbyte open source, so make sure that you install that as well from the GitHub repo. You'll need a Google Cloud account with BigQuery, and you can use a free trial for the Google Cloud account, so that's going to be more than enough for this project. And lastly, this is optional, you'll also want Terraform installed on your local machine. All of those, as well as the instructions, will be listed down in the description below, so make sure you have those. But if you already have them, then let's get started on the tutorial. Okay, so first things first is obviously we're going to set up our project environment. We're going to install Airbyte right now, and we're actually going to use a quick start that we have that has all the tools and everything set up for you already. You just need to customize it a little bit. So let's go ahead and install that now. What I'm going to go ahead and do is paste this command, and now I will put this down in the description below so that you don't have to go and find this. This command will install the specific quick start that we'll be using in this tutorial from our repo. This is going to contain not only Airbyte through the Terraform provider, but it'll also have a DBT project and a Dagster project already filled out for you. You just need to customize it a little bit more. Before I go ahead and do that, I'm actually going to make a directory for right now, and I'm going to call this quick start underscore demo, and I'm also going to cd into quick start underscore demo, and then I will go ahead and paste that in, and it'll clone into the quick start. And now the other command that we're going to need to run is going to be cd into quick starts, and then we will also need to check out the specific quick start and move into that, which is going to be the e-commerce analytics platform with BigQuery. Now that we have that ready, I'm going to go ahead and cd into the e-commerce and analytics BigQuery directory. And if I hit ls, you can see that we kind of have everything there. So if I'm gonna go ahead and open up my code editor here. All right, so now that we're in our code editor, let me go over the individual folders to give you a better explanation of what this directory looks like and all their functions. All right, so starting at the top, you have your DBT project folder. This is going to contain everything that's needed to run your DBT project, including the models, referencing the source tables, so on and so forth. And you can, this is literally a DBT project, so you can do whatever you want within this folder that pertains to DBT. Underneath that is going to be the infra folder, and that is going to contain Airbyte through the Terraform provider. In this tutorial, we're not going to use the Airbyte Terraform provider since I'm going to be using the open source version, but just know that you can use this inside of this quick start to make it a little easier to spin up your Airbyte instances instead of having to download and clone the Airbyte open source version. And then beneath that is going to be our orchestration folder. So this folder is going to hold our Dagster project. Dagster is the tool we're going to use for our workflow / orchestration to make sure that DBT and Airbyte are working together synonymously and working in order. Now that we have a better understanding of the folder structure and this project directory, let's move in and create our virtual environment. So back in my terminal here, I'm going to run Python 3, and I'm going to say -m venv space venv. And that's going to create a virtual environment inside of this project here. And now to activate it and get into it, I'm going to say source venv /bin /activate. And if I open up the terminal here, we should be able to see that we are inside of the e-commerce analytics BigQuery virtual environment. If I collapse it, it'll go away. That's just my specific terminal, but you should see something that notifies you that you are indeed in the virtual environment. Now, the next thing to do is install all of our dependencies. So what I'm going to do is say pip install -e, and then I'm going to copy and paste this flag over, but it's pretty much just going to be quotes dot square brackets dev and then end quote. Let's go ahead and install that, and that will install all of the necessary dependencies for this project. Okay, so now that we have everything installed, let's go ahead and set up our Google Cloud account with BigQuery. So if you aren't familiar with Google Cloud or don't know how to set it up, essentially all you have to do is go over to Google Cloud, head over to the console, and then if you're brand new, you just have to create an account. Once you create an account, you want to go up to the top left here and hit new project. And within that new project, you can give it a name, select an organization, and then you can click create. I'm not going to create it since we already have a BigQuery instance here that I'm going to utilize. But if you have any questions on it, please feel free to post them down in the comments or just look them up on Google, and it should be pretty self-explanatory. Once you have a project created, then you can go up to the top left here in the navigation menu and go down and hit BigQuery. That's going to send you to a screen just like this, and at the very, very top where you see your project name, you can click Create Dataset. And from here, we're going to create a data set and we're going to name this Quick Start, just cuz. You want to make sure it's multi-region, US, or whatever region that you want, and then you can click Create Data Set. Now, if I go down and we have Quick Start. As you can see, there's nothing in here in Quick Start, but we're going to go ahead and fill that up now. Before that, we do need what's called a service account within Google Cloud. So we're going to go back up to the navigation menu, and then we're going to hover over the I am an admin product and then go to service accounts. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this, and all of this should be blurred out since this is all pretty much confidential information. But essentially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a new service account, which you can see at the button up top here. And you're going to give it a name, whatever name you want. And then on the service account access to project, you're going to want to grant some specific permissions. That's going to be the BigQuery data editor and then the BigQuery job user roles. Once you have that, you can go all the way down and click done. And then once you're there, you should have your list of service accounts or just the single service account. And then from within there, you can go ahead and click on it. And within the service account, you want to click on the keys tab, add a key, create new key, and then you want a JSON key. When you click create, it'll go ahead and download a file for you. Make sure you save exactly where that's at. And we'll get back to that later, but now we're gonna go ahead and set up the Airbyte connectors. So as I mentioned before, you can opt to use the Terraform provider that's already listed here inside of the project directory to spin up an instance of Airbyte, but I'm going to personally use the open source version of Airbyte, which you can go ahead and clone. The link will be down in the description if you want to do that. Since I have already done that, I'm gonna go ahead and run it. So let me go ahead and open up a new terminal here. I'm just going to go ahead and open it. So I'm going to CD out of this, and then I'm going to CD into, actually, what is it called? So I need to go into my development folder. I need to do this, CD into, there we go, and then I'm going to CD Airbyte. And now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and run Docker compose up. If you haven't run Airbyte for the first time on the open source version, you would do /run AB platform. And obviously you want to make sure that you do have Docker running on your machine. I do. So I'm going to go ahead and run Airbyte right now, and it's going ahead and create all of the Docker containers and spin Airbyte up locally. Once we have it ready, we should have seen a little thing pop up that said that we can open it. So I'm going to go open up my Windows here. I'm going to do localhost port 8000, and that should get me into my Airbyte instance. Nice. And now you can see that I have a couple connections already, but if we wanted to start from scratch, I can show you exactly what we would do. So once you are in the Airbyte platform, now also remember that there will be a username and password that comes in later. The default username is Airbyte and the default password is password. You can obviously change these for security reasons, but that is the default values. Mine has already been entered, so I don't really need to do that. But now that I'm in the UI, I can click on sources here on the left-hand side. I'm going to click on new source. And now from here, you can see that we have a ton of source connectors that you can choose from. In my case, I'm going to pull from Postgres, and I'm going to go ahead and click it, and I would fill out all this information here. I've already done that. I have a Postgres database that is already spun up. So if I go here and click this, you can see that I have the source name, the host, the port, database name, the username and password to it. And I'm using the Xmin system column as my preferred update method. Obviously, these will all be blurred out since this is personal information to my specific instance of Postgres, but I am pulling data from Postgres, and now for the destination side, I'll be using BigQuery. Now, I know I created that data set, but I already have one created for the sake of this tutorial, and I've already entered in the project ID, the dataset location. The default dataset ID is going to be the name of the dataset you just created. I'm using standard inserts for the sake of this tutorial. And then for the service account key JSON. Now, the cool thing about using the UI is you don't have to do anything crazy here, but if I open up a Finder, I go to my downloads, and then you can find your JSON file that you just installed. I'm going to open that with Visual Studio Code, and it's going to open up here, and you can see all the information of the JSON file. Again, this is all going to be blurred out, but what you can do is from here, you're going to select all of the text, you're going to copy it, and then you can go back into the Airbyte UI and literally just paste it into this text box, and then you are done. You're going to hit test and save. Everything should check out. If it hasn't, you want to double check that all this information is correct. The same thing with your source. And then from there, you can create a connection. From here, I already have the connection Postgres to BigQuery, so we have that set. Now that that's all ready to go, let's go back into the code and set up our DBT project. All right, so I'm going to open up the DBT folder here, and you can see everything available to us. I am also going to go back into my terminal and CD into the DBT project here. And now that we're in there, I'm going to go into our first file, which is going to be the profiles.yaml file, which we're going to change around here. So this is where our modifications are going to start. First one being the data set. Now the data set is going to be the name of the data set that you created. In our case, it was going to be quick start here. The key file, you can set an environment variable if you want, but this will be the path to your service account key that you just downloaded. And I'm not going to create an environment variable here, but you can absolutely. For the sake of this tutorial, I am just going to copy the path. Since I'm on Mac OS, I'm going to hit copy on the file in the downloads folder. Within the quotations, I am going to paste it in, and that is going to be my direct path to my service account. And you can see that the method here is service account. Your project ID will be the name of your project ID. I have that already. So let me go ahead and grab that. The type is going to be BigQuery, since we're going to be doing our transformations in a BigQuery warehouse here, and everything else can stay the same. Make sure you save this YAML file. One thing I should do is go back into the Airbyte UI that we just had, and I'm going to actually change the connection in our BigQuery instance to reflect and show the start to end of this process. So I'm going to change it to the quick start dataset that we just created. I'm going to go ahead and click test and save, make sure that we can actually connect to that, and it should check out, and we're all good to go here. So that destination is all set up now, and we can move forward going with the tutorial. So now that we've modified the profiles.yaml file, we're also going to have to go in and change out the sources file. And now this is where a lot of the customization comes in. So if you go into the models folder, you're going to see 3 folders here. You're going to see marts, sources, and staging. All of these are going to change, but let's start with the sources here. So initially the quick start used the faker source. I'm going to change all of this. So I'm actually going to go ahead and copy and paste it for time here, but I will go over exactly what changes are being made within this folder. Okay, so let me paste this in, change the schema over to quick start. So the name of this is actually going to be Postgres. Since we're grabbing our sources from Postgres, I'm also going to rename this from faker_sources to Postgres_sources. This will be the database, which is going to be your project ID, and then the dataset name we obviously changed to the schema here. And these are going to be our tables. Now the tables are going to be exactly the same tables that are coming from Postgres that I have right now. So I have a customers table. There's the description for this, as well as the columns that are labeled inside of this table. So I have an ID, an address, email, customer ID, and these are all the ones that are going to come from Airbyte when you write it over into BigQuery. Same thing for the products, orders, and reviews. It's very important that you keep the same structure when you are listing out your sources and your tables, so that DBT can actually recognize what kind of data it's working with here. So get the names right, get all of the other columns correct within each table, and then once you're done here, you can go ahead and save this file, and that is everything we need when we're hooking up BigQuery over to DBT. Now, if we're going to go over to our terminal here, we can actually run dbt debug, and this is what's going to test our connection to BigQuery. So it's going to run everything, make sure everything's okay, and as you can see, all checks have passed, so I'm successfully connected to our BigQuery warehouse right now. So now that we have this all set up, let me once again go over the folders that we're going to work with inside of this DBT project that are important. So we started with the models folder. This is where all of our code is going to go into. First, starting with sources. So as we saw already, this is where all of our source data is going into dbt first. So this is our initial reference of all the data that we're going to be working with in dbt. We've labeled it as Postgres sources so that we can further identify that these are the initial source tables coming in from Postgres when we're working with Dagster. And as you saw already, we're detailing the tables and the columns so that we have a very clear view of the blueprint of the data that we're working with, the raw data, before it gets transformed. The next folder we're going to focus on is the staging folder. Now, this is where we're going to essentially, as the name suggests, stage all of our data for further processing. Essentially, what we're doing here is selecting all of the data from the sources table and kind of refining all of the columns to make sure that they're formed in a way that we can access within our actual SQL transformations. Essentially, just cleaning all the data up so that we can get ready to transform it is the easiest way to put it. The next one is going to be our marts folder. Here is where all of the sophisticated data transformations are going to happen. You can essentially see these as specific views where we modify and transform all of the data that we have from our source tables and how we've staged them to give us better insights and actually deliver value based off of the data that we have, and then present that in a specific view that actually represents that. These are three models that were pre-made for us. We're actually going to create our own since the data is a little different from what we have originally right now. So now that we have a better understanding of this project structure within dbt, let's go ahead and create our, well, first we're going to have to stage our data first, and then we'll go into creating our models. So I'm going to go in and close these folders here, and in staging, we're going to again change these since they're a little different here. So I do have a products file already that I will go ahead and copy and paste, but you can see what's going to change here, and I will explain this. So this is basic SQL if you know SQL already. If you don't, we do have a SQL playlist that is in the description right now if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. But this is where I'm selecting all of the information from our products source table, which is going to be the name, price, category, product ID, and then all of the Airbyte metadata that comes with. And here is where we are referencing the source table. So we're going to say from, and in two double brackets, we're going to say source, and then in parentheses, we're going to point to the Postgres source, which is going to be this right here. And then the table we're looking at is the products table, which is going to be reflected here in after the comma in the second place. We're going to go ahead and save, and we're going to do the rest. We're going to do the same for the rest of these, but we're going to change them as we go. So the first one I'm going to do is customers. Let me go ahead and do this. We're going to change the name of this over to customers. For users, we're going to change that to orders, change to orders. And then we're going to create a new file called staging_reviews.sql. And then I will go ahead and grab the reviews file, paste it here. Okay, so I have everything I need, and obviously you can kind of stage this however you want and omit any columns from the table that you don't necessarily need, but I've opted to take all of them. So now that we've staged all of our tables from within our Postgres source database, we're going to go ahead and create our marts. And this is, again, our specific views that we can get and generate value from our data that we have here and transform them in a way so that we can actually visualize what the data is trying to tell us. I'm going to actually go ahead and delete all of these files here. I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to create a new file in here, and I'm going to call this enhanced_customer_view.sql. And here we can actually see how we're going to be able to reference the staging files in order to transform this data. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this, and I'm going to do the word wrapping here. Okay, so what you can see here is we're going to create a base or a CTE right here with customer_orders as, and we're going to select, we have an alias of O, which we've set here where you can see the first reference. So in this table, we're going to reference the staging order table or the staging orders file here. Down here, we're going to reference the staging products. But this is just an enhanced customer view where we get to get all of the customer information all in one view. And I spelled enhanced wrong, so let me go ahead and make sure that is correct. The next one we're going to create is going to be order_summary. So just a summary of all the orders. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And again, you can see that we're referencing all of the actual staged data right now from those files, and you can omit the .sql obviously, but just make sure that you have the double curly brackets and then the ref prefix behind the parentheses that will allow you to actually reference the correct files here within the staging folder. And then also you can indeed have aliases. You just got to put them right after the table name. So go ahead and save that. In this next one, we're going to have the product underscore performance view. And then so within that, copy this, paste it. And now you can see that we have two CTEs here referencing all tables put together and then putting them in and merging them here. So you can see that. Now that we have all of our marts with our specific views, let's move on to the next step and get Dagster involved so that we can actually write these transformations into BigQuery. All right, so I'm back in my terminal now, and I'm going to go ahead and CD out of this and go into the orchestration folder. And now I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and go into the orchestration folder where our Dagster project is going to be. Before we get into any modifications within the Dagster folder, let me go over exactly what each of these files are doing in order to make all of this work. The first one is going to be assets.py. In assets.py, this is the file that gets the configuration for both Airbyte and DBT together into one so that Dagster can manage both of them. You can see here that we use the @dbt_assets flag to be able to manage and run the actual DBT scripts. And then down here, this is the Airbyte instance where we are collecting and actually connecting to the Airbyte instance that we have open for Airbyte open source. This is where you would set the password as a environment variable here, and then we're pointing to the username and then the actual port of your open source instance. Next is going to be constants.py. This is where we're getting the actual DBT project directory. So we're finding where the DBT project lives in terms of its file path, as well as its manifest file path. If I word wrap this, you can see that we have an if-else statement here. This is essentially if there is no manifest file present in your project target directory, then it will generate one for you. Or if it exists, we'll grab that path and then use that for the next step in the whole Dagster ecosystem, which is going to be in the definitions.py. This file defines the actual Dagster job that takes into account everything from the assets and constants file. So it puts everything together so that Dagster can actually run a job to sync and move data from Airbyte and then transform the data with DBT once it's inside of BigQuery. Again, that's the project structure for the Dagster project. Let's go back into our terminal here, and I actually have to put in two environment variables here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste these. The first one is going to be this flag with Dagster DBT parse project on load 1. Now that's going to trigger the if-else statement here. Now, if it is true, we're going to invoke and parse to find out the manifest, or to create a manifest file, or the manifest.json file, and then put that into our path name. If it already exists, then we'll set it to the existing manifest.json file. Since this is a fresh project, you're going to go ahead and see that there is no target folder here. So we're going to have to set that. The next flag is going to be the Airbyte password. So this is just an environment variable for the password to authenticate into our Airbyte instance when we access it through the API. And obviously it's just password. So we're going to go ahead and enter, and we have those available. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and run Dagster dev in my terminal. I got a weird flag that says Dagster web server Python package must be installed in order to use Dagster dev command. Let me do pip. We'll be debugging here. Let me see if installing the dependencies here are going to help. That should work. So I just installed all the dependencies for orchestration, even though it should have already. So if I run Dagster dev, didn't work. I wonder if quick fix, we select a different interpreter. So we're using that. Let's go into the actual interpreter that has everything here. So it wasn't using our virtual environment. So there was that. Let me go ahead and run Dagster dev now. And it's not in it for some reason. venv/bin/activate. Let me cd out of this. And source venv /bin/ activate and cd into orchestration, and then we're going to run Dagster dev, and that works. Okay, so we just had to go back into it, I guess. And so you can see that we're running into, we're launching the Dagster services, running all this, cool. And then you should see a command spit out where it says a port here. So I'm going to hold command since I'm on Mac and click it, and it will open up the Dagster UI where we can actually see a holistic view of everything in Dagster. Now, if I do, or if I click this, let me go ahead and make this a little bigger so that everyone can see, and click Global Asset Lineage, we can see that we have a more holistic view of everything inside of Dagster, which is great. So we have Postgres BigQuery, which is going to be our customers, orders, products, and then reviews. And then we have the default view here with all of our DBT runs. So it is doing its initial parse right now. So let me go ahead and click Materialize All. If I click Materialize All, that is going to run Airbyte to sync data from Postgres over to BigQuery. And then when that's done, it'll run DBT on top of the data once it's inside of BigQuery. So I'm going to go ahead and click Materialize All, and you can see it launched to run, and we should see everything start to kick off. And there we go. All the assets are going, running everything. And then if we go back into the UI here for Airbyte, we should see that we have a sync running right now on Postgres to BigQuery, and it's going to sync all the data over, which is fantastic. No issues here yet. It looks like DBT had a fail here. So this never materialized. We should just wait for the Airbyte jobs to run first, and then we will rerun DBT. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh this. So it looks like this was all good. This materialized. Let's go ahead and rerun the DBT DAGs now. If we go over into BigQuery, back over to here, let's go into the project. It looks like DBT is now running. Just had a little bit of a hiccup since the data wasn't actually in there just yet. So I hit Materialize All, and it wasn't ready for it. Where is Quick Start? If we open up Quick Start, you can see everything is now being written in there, and it finished our execution. So you go back here, you can see that all of the jobs in Dagster materialized, and it is reflected here inside of our Quick Start data set. So if you go to the customers, this is our initial table, or from the Postgres table or database, and in here you can actually have our views. So this is the views that we created and used in DBT to transform all of the staged tables here. Now if I wanted to query this, and I'll open up a new tab, I'm going to select all from this view, and if I hit run, you can see down here, let me go ahead and refresh it since it probably didn't refresh just yet, which is why it's failing. If I go ahead and click run, all right, so now you can see the relation here. So it'll go Airbyte to DBT. So I'm going to go ahead and click Materialize All, and it's going to go ahead and start this job here, which we will see on the far right. So it ran all the jobs with Airbyte over here on the right-hand side, and then it should initiate all the DBT ones once the Airbyte jobs have materialized. Looks like we had a little bit of a hiccup again. So it just kicked back on just because the Airbyte jobs have now finished, so it now is running the DBT models. So it is materializing now, and now you can see that they've all materialized successfully. If I head over to BigQuery now, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh the contents, we can see that everything is in there. We're going to go over to one of our tables, Enhance Customer View. I have one already here. I'm going to go ahead and click Run, and we should see data in the results. So if I go ahead and click run, you can see that the results are now here. Let me go ahead and close this side. But you can see that we have our table here from the enhanced customer view that you can see on the bottom hand side with the views that we've created. So that's how you can create an easy e-commerce data pipeline using all of these cool data tools. If you have any other questions, please let us know down in the comment section below, but we'll see you on the next one. Peace.